I'm Aaron Meyer. You're listening to the 199 Podcast. On this week's deep dive into basketball culture from around the world, Lorenzo, from 30 home games, has made basketball an inspiration for traveling the world. We get into it.
You asked me earlier how I got into the game. I think that's sort of just a normal, traditional story. My deepening fandom happened in 2011 when I started traveling overseas and using my interest of the game to help me find experiences, help me connect with people.
We finish up today with our Games of the Week check-in from our weekly podcast. A bit of a crossover this week. There's some changes on the way.
Yesterday was absolutely nuts. Probably my favorite day of the year as far as college basketball goes.
that makes the blowouts a little more fun. It's time to start the show.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all theirs. Nice move by Steve Fisher here.
Welcome to the 199 Podcast. I'm your host this week, Aaron Meyer, and I'm here with Lorenzo from Down Under. He's a day ahead of us right now. It's Thursday morning. Thanks for being with us, Lorenzo. How are you?
Welcome from the future. Good. It's nice and early, so I'm happy to chat.
Right.
Always happy to chat ball.
Summertime there too, right?
Nah, it's all over the place. Like, it's been erratic. It's like muggy. It's been muggy and rainy.
Yeah. Man, that doesn't sound very much fun. Well, better than freezing cold. It was 28 here this morning, 28 Fahrenheit, so super cold, below 0 Celsius.
Deep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, starting off, just give us your basketball origin story, because what's so great, again, about the basketball community is that it connects all of us in so many different ways, and I think it's so much fun to be able to talk to someone from a different country and different part of the world, but still be connected. I mean, the first thing I saw was your dunk comp hat on, and immediately just had a random connection just through basketball, so I love that kind of stuff. So how did you get into basketball? I
mean, I think simply put, I'm a kid of the 90s. Like, I'm 40, and obviously that was the height of the Jordan era. I actually got into the game after Jordan retired, so I think I have a vague memories of the '93 finals, but I came in as an Elijah One fan.
Hakeem Olajuwon. He was in the top 10 in 5 categories.
Our best sins, I'm glad you had to write them down. Hakeem to me is number one. Yeah, the Dream was my favorite and the reason was he was a guy that I couldn't break.
Jackson turning on the dribble, in from the left side, kicks to Jordan in the left corner. Michael in the move against McRae, in from the left, lays it high. Blocked inside, Elijah.
I'm also Filipino heritage,
okay.
So there's a lot of obviously affinity from that, but I came in the dirty secret is that the Rockets won 16 in a row to start that season. And I think I jumped on that bandwagon, but not many people know that. But yeah, my brothers they chose Reggie Miller. My younger brother chose Karl Malone, and those were our guys. Those were our teams. And I mean, access to the game back then wasn't very easy.
How did you watch it? Were you looking at box scores or I mean, there's no YouTube. It's hard for people to even comprehend now. Even for me, it's I just look it up on the NBA app or on whatever.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've really investigated because I have become a super fan. So I'm trying to recall what it truly was, not romanticize it. Mm-hmm. In any way, but we had weekend shows. So we had I think a 2-hour game of the week, which was edited, and maybe a half-hour show. And I distinctly remember maybe 3 or 4 years in, we had this show called Sports Tonight, where at 10 p.m. they'd reveal what would happen from the game's events. And I remember watching it and I was like, wait a minute, this is spoiling what I'm going to watch on Saturday. Because it was a game of the week from earlier on. And then I realized, oh, wait, these games aren't live. these weekend games aren't live. And obviously now with the internet, we're getting things instantaneously. We're getting results
Yeah.
like minute by minute. But back then, you would see it in the paper. But I wasn't really reading the paper. I'm 14.
Yeah, right.
Like I'm getting it from watching these weekend shows.
That's great. So this is like a NBA inside stuff, and you're watching it with you mentioned you had brothers, so you guys playing
inside stuff in NBA action.
Yeah, you guys playing basketball too then, or just more into the just watching the sport?
Yeah, it was cousins' backyards and stuff. So like, and then obviously it became fashion. Like it was, the stores would sell Georgetown and Michigan, and the shops would sell Magic, Hornets, Lakers, and Bulls, and those are your teams. And as you find, but they were also where the cool players were anyway.
Right, yeah.
You had Shaq and LJ.
Okay, so speaking of just overseas basketball, what do you think? I know that it's hard for you to represent all of people overseas, but just from your perspective, your vantage point, what do you think that people in the United States don't get about watching the game from overseas?
How you would get it is from your local leagues. And in the 90s, the local leagues, were booming. So the NBL, which is our local league now, was booming. But then it's dependent on how the shows are, because you're piggybacking off the NBA success. And obviously, as international players get more and more elite, then it's easier to jump on, because it's easy to follow. Like it becomes mainstream, and everyone loves winners. So back then, we had Andrew Gaze and Shane Heal, who would come into the NBA later in their careers, and sort of just would be novelty appearances. But Andrew Bogut got drafted, but when Andrew Bogut got drafted number one, the NBA wasn't as popular globally yet, and it wasn't as popular in Australia. Like it was still a niche thing. But as Ben Simmons comes in, Josh Giddey, Patty Mills, the younger players, and with the internet, everything rises.
Okay, so I heard a lot of names. We're going to get into some of those names in a little bit, because especially Josh Giddey, I'm pretty excited about watching him. But what I guess I'm wondering then is, do those guys being in the NBA, because you mentioned growing up with Karl Malone, Reggie Miller, Michael Jordan. So is it just the caliber of the game that you're watching, or is there an extra connection that those guys are from Australia? Because we still call out, you don't call out a guy, he's from the United States. Like, even though a lot of the league is not from the United States anymore. It could almost be in a few years, you could almost reverse it with how many guys are coming from overseas. Yeah. But I didn't know if there's a special affinity for those players, or if you're just following the guys who you just like how they play basketball. I find myself kind of in between sometimes. If a guy was from my hometown specifically, I might be interested, but otherwise it's more about just how they play basketball. Steph Curry, just like watching him.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately a lot of it has to do with the storytelling, because some people aren't really interested in the origin stories. I mean, I just saw this thing that Joe Johnson's returning to the Celtics, for the team that got drafted.
Oh my gosh, incredible! But, we still got a chance at the NBA. That's right. He's 40 years old. Look for that 10-day.
But a lot of Celtics fans probably would never known he was drafted there. I just remember him as a Hawk at the earliest.
Yeah.
So, and obviously if you're a younger fan, you definitely don't know. So a lot of it is the affinity that's created from how you're introduced to the game. And going back to the 90s, I didn't know Rick Smits he was the dunking Dutchman, but those stories weren't really told. It was just a nickname,
Yeah.
Detlef Schrempf, I didn't really know he was German, even though the ad said as much. The Adidas ad said as much.
Yeah.
So, and I think with accents as well, Clint Capella, Dennis Schroeder, all those guys are foreign as well, but unless you hear it in their voices, you wouldn't think you wouldn't think those things. So, but I do think it does help with, especially when they play for their national teams, that helps the growth And obviously NBA fans and American fans aren't seeing the cultural outreach and the community building that these guys do back home. And, like, Australians do see that because they're the guys who might see at, in-store appearances and stuff like that. But definitely it's all success. Like, everyone wants a Patty Mills jersey, everyone wants a Josh Giddey jersey, and it's available for us in the stores. Other things aren't, and obviously Ben Simmons, those sales have probably gone down.
You went there. Okay, what's the Australian temperature on Ben Simmons? I mean, there was a little bit of hype before the Olympics this summer that he was gonna play, and then he ended up not playing and said that he was gonna work on his jump shot. And I don't know what he was working on, but he's got some things to work on. Hopefully, he's doing that. But what's the Australian temperature on old Ben Simmons now?
Well, I mean, we got our first medal, so I guess we didn't have to think about it too much because we got what we wanted, and we got it with a team that has the heritage because a lot of them had kept coming back. Andrew Bogut retired because of, I think he aged out, especially with COVID, adding that extra year. Aaron Baines got injured. So, a lot of these key guys weren't able to really be part of the final hurdle. So I think it's best just to focus on the guys that did show up. And when Ben Simmons shows up, I'm sure everyone will be back on board, and they should be. And so it's best to think of the positive, I guess, right?
I love that. I think it gets lost in it. You end up because it's a fun narrative to pick on someone, especially to, kind of kick sand on them when they're down. But ultimately, he's a fun basketball player for all his warts. Like, everybody's got something that's, every basketball player has something that's not perfect about their game. And it's just that his is all that everyone's talking about right now because he's not playing. And, when he plays and throws down some dunks or throws a no-look pass, then you start to think about those other parts of his game again as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's a fun player, and he is a guy that I think when it's all said and done, he might be the greatest Australian in terms of accomplishments and talent. And I think his jersey sales are going to still be up there. I mean, but I think Josh Giddey is going to make a case as well.
He's been awesome. He's been awesome this year. Okay, while he's up, we'll circle back to him a little bit. But I've been super excited about Giddey because I saw him. I actually am a sicko enough about basketball that I watched NBA Summer League even, and so he only got like 5 minutes at the Summer League, and I was like, wow, this guy. Because coming in, I think that the sort of draft analytics was he's got some passing skill, some athleticism, but is like, a couple years away. He's like 2 years away from being 2 years away. But he looked great. Like 5 minutes, I'm like, this guy looks like a basketball player. And it turns out that's right. So have you been tracking him for a little while? And what are your thoughts about the start of his NBA career?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, NBL times NBA, I don't know if there's much penetration with that over there, but the local league and the local owner, he's really had preseason games in the NBA since 2017, and I've been lucky to be at those things. And so there's that relationship, but also we've been getting, the LaMelo Balls and RJ Hamptons, and before that, Terrence Ferguson, Victoria Craig, these types of guys who are young or, up and coming. Yeah. And then, take the step to the NBA. So I think Brian Bowen. So when LaMelo came in, he came in with Jayshawn Tate, who was a Sydney Kings star when he came over there. So there's been that percolating interest, but I don't know if too many people, like a lot of my basketball fans that are friends of mine, they didn't watch Giddey when he played in the NBL. Really? And I had it in my calendar, and because of COVID, it was sporadic. Yeah. Like you had to hope that when he played in Sydney and Wollongong, which is like an hour away, that COVID hadn't affected, because there were some games where they were put in different arenas, and some games where it was closed door. So luckily, the games that were available to me were later in COVID, and I was able to attend them, and I got to see him up close and personal. And yeah, dude, like you could see he was getting Draymond Green assists like 10-10-10, but
Yeah.
you could see that he was letting the game come to him, and the passing was there. And of course, once he has NBA level targets, if he's able to sneak those passes through, which he is, yeah, he's delivered on his promise.
That's good. That's good perspective. He's just fun. He's just fun to watch, and he looks like he's fun to play with too. And him and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are just a nice duo to build around because they look like guys that other guys would want to play with. Like if I had a chance to play at that level, I'd be like, yeah, I'd want those guys on my team because they're gonna put up points and help me get the win. But they also seem like they just have fun playing basketball and are willing and know how to play the right way.
And so because he is an Aussie, I was like really high on him, and you're sort of like trying to speak into existence. But because I'd seen what LaMelo Ball was doing in the NBL and how he sort of seamlessly transitioned into still delivering in the NBA, Giddey was delivering better numbers. His points weren't there, but he had 3 triple doubles as opposed to LaMelo's 2, and he was taller and bigger than LaMelo. So like I just thought, okay, so he's better than LaMelo in terms of
Yeah,
like he's comparable to LaMelo.
I like that. That would have been great. You could have made if a scout had got a hold of that scouting report ahead of the draft, you could have made some money off that.
Well, I mean, they reached at 6, so that's higher than all of us thought.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, you could argue he could have gone even higher than that. I mean, I think he could be making an impact just about on any team right now. Okay, so you mentioned then some of those other names like LaMelo and RJ Hampton. What is the perspective in Australia about the guys coming over to play in the NBL? Because it's, over here, the story that's told is that it's an alternative to the NCAA where you can't make money, that now you can get paid to play basketball rather than be in the kind of draconian NCAA where you're playing for free. And I just wanted to see if it's like that. But I guess the reverse of that then is that they tend to try to figure out ways to maybe disparage it. Like the powers that be are like, well, it's the NBL and talk about the competition level. So 2 questions, kind of what's the perspective on those players coming over? And then what's the level of competition like? You've watched a lot of NBA basketball. Like how does it compare?
Competition is great. I mean, I think there is still that people will disparage it. And I think local NBL fans aren't really drawn in by the Americans or the imports so much because you're drawn in by people who are, engaged with the community and who are maybe trying to build something there. And obviously, if it's mostly a stepping stone, then you don't have that reason to build that affinity. Like I actually went to a Hawks game when Giddey played against the Hawks, and I was going to count how many LaMelo Ball jerseys were in the crowd, like sort of a remnant of how he elevated that franchise in terms of like global. And, like I would wear a LaMelo Ball jersey with a slam, ad on the chest.
Yeah.
But dude, I didn't see it. Like maybe I counted 20, 25 jerseys and I saw only like 4 LaMelo Ball ones, which speaks to what, community building it should be about. You can't just always go for the celebrity who's might not hang around. It is going to be the people with a bit more legacy and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's good for media attention and it's good for bringing casual fans in, but I think local fans are trying to build sort of a more internal community, I guess. But we'll take credit for everything. Like when Jay Sean Tate puts up big numbers, even bigger numbers than he was doing here.
He looks awesome.
We're going to be like, we're going to be like, that's the Sydney King right there.
Yeah, right.
So you're always going to claim what wherever you can, and it's nice when we still see them on like local social media feeds, because like it can kind of seem corny where the local team are trying to claim him as like, well, he's a Sydney King, even though he's only been there for a couple of games. But like that connection is good. Like, and you hope it's reciprocated by the player, and yeah.
You think some of these guys will come back to Australia and finish out their careers now that they've had a taste of being down there? I've never had a chance to travel there, but I've heard amazing things. It's definitely on my bucket list.
I mean, that'd be great. Like, we actually have a lot of ownership from foreign from players. Like, I think Chris Middleton has had a stake in some teams. Zebo, Sean Marion. So like so that ownership stake helps them in terms of sometimes they come down to obviously check on their investment, and it adds a bit of glamour to some of these teams, knowing that there are foreign investors and like players that we know and look up to. I don't know if players necessarily will come back, but it's like I remember Josh Childress was playing for my team, the Sydney Kings, and he got injured, and I think Al Harrington filled in for a couple of games.
Oh wow!
When
was he in ownership too? Did I read that story that he had some ownership? I don't know. Maybe not. I could be wrong.
I know he doesn't have a stake in like weed or
I don't know,
or cannabis.
Maybe that too. Yeah, probably a lot of those guys are getting into that area now.
Yeah, but it obviously like owning a team is just it's another asset.
Definitely. Okay, so I want to pivot just for a minute and talk a little bit about 30 Home Games, which is your handle on Instagram, and give me the kind of your origin story behind that project. Combines a couple of my passions, basketball and traveling, and it's about one thing, but it seems like it's about basketball travel, maybe a little bit in general. But you tell me.
Yeah, like you asked me earlier how I got into the game, and I think that's sort of just a traditional story. But my deepening fandom happened in 2011 when I started traveling overseas and using my interest of the game to help me find experiences, help me connect with people. And I was just on a search. So I was backpacking Europe for a year.
Wow.
And within the first 2 months, I had been in two different countries, Germany and Spain. And I realized that I had a basketball experience in both countries. And I decided, okay, from now on, I'm going to try to stay a month in whatever country I'm in, and I'm going to search for basketball experiences in every place. And I completed that mission. And, and the types of experiences you have when you have a rolling mission and when you're gaining momentum, like it leads to other things. And obviously when you set the intention, like things come to you. And that year was during the lockout seasons in 2011.
Yep.
And so I was hooping in I think Amsterdam, and one of the locals there, who was a Spanish traveler, he was like, "Oh, so you're going to check out the EuroBasket, right?" And he actually didn't know what that was at the time, and that's the regional tournament for FIBA.
Yeah.
That feeds into the World Cup. So it was in Lithuania, which is a hoops mad nation.
Definitely.
And so it was awesome. I traveled there. I was around hoops mad people. I met Slovenians everywhere. You meet Polish guys everywhere. And it's that sort of festival atmosphere. And I was invited into people's homes, and that really made me want to continue. That month is where I started 30 Home Games, which is my mission to visit the 30 NBA teams. And from then on, I've just kept that momentum. I've been to FIBA tournaments in Asia, South America, and I've been to half the NBA teams now.
Nice.
And
What's okay? So give me your top couple stadiums that you've been to so far, knowing that you've got half of them to still see.
Well, the tricky part is I sometimes visit during preseason.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm a budget traveler, so I'm not watching playoff games necessarily. But so Memphis is my team, and in 2017 I went to Memphis for the playoffs. So that was my first playoff experience, and that was
that's cool.
during the end, so I made it specifically because I knew it was the end of the Core 4 era.
Hmm.
And so that was the first round against the Spurs.
Oh,
And
wow.
I flew in just in time for game 4, which is, if you remember, there was a buzzer beater there.
Yeah. So that's gonna be hard to beat. That's just like everything wrapped up in one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was that. I think OKC had a good vibe because the Melbourne team, which was visiting, was close. They only lost by one, and that was when Melo, Russell Westbrook, and Paul George. That was sort of their
Okay.
debut, their preseason debut.
That's
Was that
cool.
big
Yeah.
three?
Yeah. That would have been neat. A lot of buzz around them, and kind of like the Lakers this year until things
Yeah, yeah.
get on the court, and you're like, man, this isn't working like we thought it would. This sounds way better on paper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they almost lost by one against
Oh, wow.
the Melbourne
That
team.
should have
So
been the
like.
first sign, right?
Well, and so because a lot of people back then, I remember, but they were like, "Oh, it's preseason, who cares?" But then you're like, "Yeah, but those three players played 30 plus minutes." Like,
Yeah. Yeah. They should be, if they're really that good, they should be able to beat, anyone. Cause I'm sure the dream team or just these like phenomenal teams like, the Golden State Warriors, like everybody on the team's playing like 30 minutes and they win 73 games. It's just like
yeah,
the
yeah,
Bucks last year, Giannis was playing like 30 minutes. Like if you're good, you don't have to play the whole game because you're blowing other teams out.
yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to go to college basketball a little bit. You mentioned Georgetown and a couple of teams that you knew of growing up, but is there a way to expand people's interests in college basketball overseas, or what is the interest level like? Because it's here at this time of year, it's probably even more popular right now than pro basketball, just because they have these kind of marquee events at the start of the year, whether it's like coaches versus cancer or the big like cross conference matchups that you don't get then later on in the year, and that drums up a lot of interest at the start of the season, and then the NBA hits that December 25th kind of kickoff to their season where everything's on the major networks, and interest kind of seems to shift a little towards the NBA. And then back to NCAA for March Madness. So what's it like overseas, the ebb and flow, and is there a connection to college basketball over there?
I think obviously March Madness is a whole nother level, and
Mm.
there is a lot of marketing behind that, and like that's what I know. I actually don't know, and to me, for me, college has always been who am I looking for that will make the leap into the NBA? And
Yeah,
a lot of that is because like we might not know the sort of the narratives for each team. Like you'll know about the Fab Five and Duke.
yeah,
You'll know about the sort of the
interesting.
glamour teams. But the smaller teams, you got things like 30 for 30, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's really maybe for the nerds. And I think like so I work for a store at the moment, and I help write captions and descriptions, like to tell the stories behind each of the teams and why you're getting like a certain Mitchell and Ness jersey,
Mm.
a certain like unique product, and I do wonder how many people actually read that stuff, because
More than you think,
like
actually. Josh writes them for our website, and I talk to him a lot about storytelling. And I think there is I mean, that's part of what we're doing right now, is that there is a connection in just hearing people talk about the game and knowing that it is this thing that connects us all. And so I often look at those things just to, if it's just even to remind myself of what I liked about a certain jersey, like just to bring up a memory that I actually experienced and just hear it from someone else's perspective.
well, I mean, maybe this like you haven't commented on my shirt, so it's a Wake Forest Demon Deacon shirt,
Oh, I
but
didn't see. It's cut off in the video a little bit, so I have to. I
okay.
said, yes, nice.
But but the reality is actually I didn't grow up knowing what the Demon Deacs were. Like I
Yeah.
knew Wake Forest just because of the players that were there.
Okay.
But I'm wearing this shirt because I had a good experience when I was at Winston-Salem, and the buddy was a big college guy, was a big dookie. He told me about it, and for me right now it's more of just a fashion statement and like a nostalgia piece. and I think that's ultimately what I think college is. It's sort of, it reminds you of a time. It reminds you of these sort of I think narrative is a bigger part of what college represents, where because the teams change out all the time.
Yeah.
So obviously in the NBA, like, you're going to love the Rockets while Harden's there, and when Harden leaves, you might not care as much. But if you're from Houston, you're gonna stay loyal, obviously. With college, because players are there for 1 or 2 years, it really has to be the heritage and the narratives around the place. So that's what I guess you need to build, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like that perspective. I think that's very true, especially if you don't, if you didn't go to the school. I guess that's kind of the analogy. Like if you're from Winston-Salem, or you're from, you went to the school, it's just a different level of connection. But otherwise, it is and I've certainly found that learning more about the history and the stories behind the teams is what makes it ultimately interesting. Like, you represent it just because it looks cool, and you probably know, like you said, some of the players from that, and so if someone asked you about it, you've got something to say about it, and can be fun to share that information.
Yeah, well, and the reason I mentioned
who's your team? Who's your Demon Deacons then?
Well, I mean, like, so it's probably John Collins now, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
But yeah, obviously Duncan, Chris Paul, I wouldn't say they were my favorite players, but
Yeah.
It's more the stories that I attach to when I wear the shirt and the time when I went over there. But yeah, the reason I ask about because I'm at this shop now, like, man, one of the things that we found was like, one of the guys I work with, he went downstairs, and he saw an interaction between a person and the staff member. And he goes, "Oh, why are you buying this Lakers Derek Fisher shirt?" And he goes, "Oh, my friend likes the Lakers and I love fishing." And then we were like, "Dude, we spend all this time telling these stories, and these are the reasons people buy jerseys."
That's all right. Just go on. Just go on with your fishing self,
And yeah, but like, I mean, a lot of people probably do buy it.
Oh, for sure. Somebody out there, who was the guy that just won Dancing with the Stars? You'll probably be selling his jersey next. Be like, I loved Dancing with the Stars.
Shumpert.
Yeah, Amon Shumpert. I need that Amon Shumpert jersey.
But if you remember what it was like as a kid, you would buy a Georgetown shirt because everyone was wearing it, and
Yeah.
it was trendy, and it was available because you're 14 and your mum bought it for you.
Right.
But then that's when you start following the Hoyas, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you have that you remember you used to have that shirt. So, like, I guess you can't discount it completely, because especially for a young kid, like, you're innocent when you're coming into these things, but that could build the rapport and relationship that leads to a lifelong fandom.
That's pretty good. I like that. Hey, talking about just the NBA, and you mentioned them coming overseas sometimes. They've had some games in Australia now. Do you think there'll ever be a second division of the NBA? I always hear it tossed around sometimes, but obviously, we're experiencing the time differential right now. I don't know. NBA talks about expansion. There's probably some cities in the United States they could expand to too. But I always toss around the idea of, like, what would it be like, especially with F1 racing, how popular it got this year through, like, the Netflix documentary. I just wonder if there could, even if it was like the G League was just over in Australia, or something like that, where it was just a little bit like a little version of it, a second division. I don't know. I always imagine, like, ways that it could expand, or even if that'd be wanted. I don't know.
Well, so the NBA has actually never come to Australia. There's NBL times NBA things.
Okay.
Local teams going over to some of the teams over there, I think at their own expense too.
Oh.
And so and when the NBA does come, they'll play exhibition games. They'll play in, like, China, or maybe I think the Philippines and India, sort of these other markets that kind of want or need that boost to, like, really take it to another level. And Australia actually has a really, like, I think we've got really high League Pass membership, and we're already sort of an active market. And because of the cost of coming over here and the time, and like it's like a 20-hour flight. The NBA probably will never have an exhibition game here, like especially when I can just go to China or
Yeah.
the Philippines instead. If they do build it here, I think I actually don't know why they would. I mean, the closer would be more likely would be having it in Mexico and things like that. And like the NBL, for instance, tried to get a Singapore team at one point, and I think just logistically, it's just tough, like to have like satellite leagues.
Right.
I'm sure the NBL would love the salary
Yeah.
and sort of the per diem that the NBA could provide. So who knows? Maybe that could happen because it's the owner of the league is is just a business owner, and so like if he's looking to invest, that could be an avenue. Who knows?
That's crazy. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and so appreciate you coming on. I have to throw out. I think I'm trying to think. I was trying to think of something earlier about the 30 home games and wanted to see. I think that people need to just start like messaging you photos from their home games, and you just need to like see how many times around you can get on like social media into all the arenas too, and then you can like stack those up with your picture when you get there too with everybody, some kind of hashtag so that people are sending it, because it is exciting. It's been exciting to be able to go to games again this year, and that's something that I think we all really missed last year. And I know you guys had tougher lockdowns there than even we did. So it's felt like a blessing to be out and get to go to these places and to share in that kind of communal moment, cheering for a team or experiencing a playoff game. I mean, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing I haven't had as much. So when I went to Charlotte, which was sort of one of my that was there for the All-Star game.
Oh, wow.
But I used that trip to have my first college experiences. So I went to Davidson, North Carolina, and I watched the Duke, Battle for Tobacco Road at the Duke cafeteria. Because
That's all right, man. You're on campus, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on campus. It's so like I think ultimately what like the reason I've created the account and talking to you and having these stories is it would be cool to have like I'm about deeper experiences, so that when I got this jersey, how that happened, this Winston-Salem shirt was I was coming home from one of my trips, and the guy I was sitting next to on the flight, they were having their honeymoon in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
And they were Dukies, and because I was like, oh, so you live near, you're a Duke fan. Like, if I ever come back around your way, like, it'd be fun to reconnect. So they actually hosted me in Winston-Salem in
That's
between the Duke and UNC game. And like it's experiences like that where you sort of get embedded into a place and have a local knowledge and someone showing you around. Like that's ultimately what it's about. Like I think a tailgating experience at a college would be a lot of fun, but also
you need to figure out how to get to a Final Four is what you need to do.
Yeah, dude, that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
But like and just like me not being able to get into Cameron Indoor for that Duke Zion game.
Yeah.
Like you are just going to figure out how I can still have that experience. And for me, it was in the cafeteria. But like it'd be amazing to like be able to sort of manifest these experiences. You can do it just by chatting to the person next to you in the cafeteria. But to come in like,
how was the food?
I don't know if I was able to. Yeah, like I've been able to sneak in sometimes, but I think you need a pass or something. I'm 40, but I'm young looking.
Yeah. You gotta have the student card.
You gotta have the student card. Yeah.
That's great, man. Oh. Hey, okay. I gotta ask you just this. I might end up cutting this, but which city you're in? You're in Sydney.
Mm-hmm. I'm in Sydney.
So are you into coffee? That's one of another side hobby for me is coffee, and so like Sydney and Australia in particular are super known for coffee. So I figured I had to throw it out there.
Yeah, dude. Like so, I go to cafes pretty much every weekend and all the time. But that's because my girlfriend loves coffee. She's a connoisseur.
Nice.
She knows what she Like,
Okay,
speak to that.
where's your favorite? What are your favorites then? I probably know some of them.
Okay, so Owner,
Oh, yeah.
Coffee Alchemy.
Yeah.
So pretty much I live in the heart of where all that stuff is. It's like
Okay.
the hipster area. It's
Nice.
in Marrickville. But I can give you links. Like I made a zine of all the coffee places we go to because I
Did you
always take
really?
a picture of my
Nice.
yeah, like I take a picture of all my food but it's really a chance to take a picture. Like I get my girlfriend to take a picture of me with the food and the coffee and the basketball shirt I'm wearing.
Yes.
So I can give you a link to all of that.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. I think that's a perfect place to end. I again appreciate you coming on, and we'll check in again. Maybe, hopefully, in the future, sometime when you're in the States, we'll connect and figure out how to
that'd be
show up at
amazing.
a game or at a Final Four sometime in the future. Because again, just building community like this and knowing that even across the world, people are as passionate about basketball as we are is so great.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, thanks for reaching out, and yeah, can't wait to see you in person.
Well, let's talk a little college basketball. What did you see this weekend, and what were you tuning into? And then we'll get into your picks of the week.
Wish we could have got together before, but yesterday was a day. Probably my favorite day of the year as far as college basketball goes.
Nice. It was chock full.
It was chock full, and there was really a lot of blowouts that I thought would be closer games. I did well. I'll just say that.
That makes the blowouts a little more fun.
Yeah, I did well. One thing I didn't touch was the Auburn Georgia game, which I thought they
Tommy Crean had the Auburn sweating there.
Did he keep his job yesterday? Maybe, you know what I mean?
Maybe. Who knows?
He's had a lot of, it is what it is. Crean, no IU guy, but he might have kept his job yesterday because he was on the hot seat as far as the records go. But a lot of injuries there for Georgia this year.
Yeah.
But hell of an effort they put on yesterday, and so that. But gosh, and how about UCLA? Bad weekend.
Man, bad weekend. They were one of my picks that I was like confident they were going to go to the Final Four, and now I don't know again. You know, it's been a weird year for college basketball because I feel like I've been kind of on Duke all year, and then they looked awesome yesterday. But I don't know. I don't know who to trust.
And I went through that instead of going team by team. I just went kind of by conferences and SEC and Big Ten. After that, I'm just not sure. I'm not like sold on anyone else right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
Michigan might be, if you had to pick, so they were, I don't know what they were, preseason ranked, maybe 5.
They were way up there.
They might be one of the worst preseason ranked teams of all time, and still played Purdue tough on the road yesterday after beating Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Kentucky, which never want to brag on them, but they look pretty strong right now.
They look good. I know.
I mean, Alabama.
Their big guy is out of control. Like that guy is good.
They went on the road at Alabama, and Alabama gets hot. They can beat anybody in the country, but they're on a bad skid right now, and Kentucky took care of them.
Yeah, they did.
And then Kansas dismantled Baylor. Duke went into North Carolina, took care of them. And then Wisconsin barely, again, survives Penn State. You know, just a typical Big Ten game.
Yeah.
And then a little surprised that UConn-Villanova matchup yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't watch that game. What happened in that one?
Just dismantled. Just not a game.
Man,
just
so
didn't
crazy.
See that.
Yeah.
Villanova got out quick and just, I don't know what I think they won by 10 or 12 or something like that, but just and then Rutgers beats Michigan State by 20.
Yeah, I know. Rutgers has been playing really well lately too.
And so, I don't know, and then Indiana got, I don't know if you watched that game or not.
Depressing second half. Yeah, looked great in the first half. He's
out first half. Colburn does nothing. He comes back in the second half, and it's over with. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think the Wisconsin game too. Did you see the score at halftime?
I didn't.
like-
No.
Throwing this out there, it might have been like 17-12 or something. Weird.
Crazy.
Yeah. No, it's so.
That's out. Is that weird for a Wisconsin score?
Wisconsin. What's that? So the Wisconsin Penn State game was 18-13 at halftime.
Gosh. Well, IU only scored, I think, 19 points in the second half. So I can't say that that's all that out of the ordinary. It just is, college basketball is about guards and guards getting the big guys into putting them in a position. Coach Woodson, I listened to the press conference after that, and I think he was pretty insightful about just like, how important it is for the guards to set up those big guys. And I think that the two things for Illinois that happened so well were that their guards were playing really well, and then they were just mercilessly feeding it into Coburn.
In the second, because the first half, Indiana's defense was amazing.
Really good. Yep.
Really good. It was intentional.
Yep.
In the second half. And then there was, yesterday. So looking back, so you got Xavier lost at home to DePaul, and Vanderbilt wins by 9 against LSU, which, Vanderbilt's just been rough.
Yeah, they've been rough.
I don't know.
I was watching Cincinnati today too. I was thinking that they might give Houston a scare, but I'll tell you what, Houston's been talk about a team that just does not care about injuries. You hear a team like Memphis complain about some of the injuries they've had, and Houston's had their share of issues this year, and they just keep winning.
You ready for tomorrow? You got some extra change in your pocket?
I'm ready. Okay. Yeah.
Kansas at Texas.
Nice.
Tomorrow. Texas favored by 1.5 at home.
They just won though over the weekend. Who they beat somebody? I said
they beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
They beat it. And then you got Virginia at Duke tomorrow, which is a 12-point line. So I'm not going to look at Virginia, Duke, Arizona State. But this Kansas Texas game is intriguing because the line's so tight, and it's at Texas, and it's a coin flip, and Kansas looks so good, and so I'm going to take Texas tomorrow.
Ooh, all right, that'd be a big win. That would be a huge win for Texas.
It would be.
That's kind of a classic letdown game, though. Like they just had Kansas just had a huge game and throttled them. Young guys get a little head on, big head, and they think, oh, well, we're going to clean up and going into Texas. That's not an easy place to play.
All right.
Who the snubs? That's what I mostly want to know about. Who should have been on there that didn't get on, or who's going to get in as an injury replacement?
Definitely Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown definitely deserved to be in there over someone like. Let's see. Jaylen Brown.
This is the tough one because that's the thing is like if you're picking someone who's a snub, it's like you got to take somebody out then. So who do you take out?
Put him in over Darius Garland.
Yeah.
He's been amazing, but Jaylen Brown's defense is just so good.
But you got to have somebody from the Cavs in there. They're like third in the East, and they've been such a surprise this year.
Yeah, and I had Jarrett Allen in my picks.
Yeah, I think he would have been a good pick. He's one that I definitely feel like was a snub.
Yeah, for Karis LeVert.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Who'd they trade?
Yeah, Ricky Rubio and a couple picks, I think.
Nice. I think that'll be a good pickup for them.
Another snub that I really wanted to see in there was LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, I feel like he was a big snub because he's perfect for an all-star game, right?
Oh, definitely. And the Hornets are pretty good, too.
They are. You're right. Yeah, they've been a bit of a surprise this year. Even his running. What about his running mate, too? Bridges has been pretty good this year.
Yeah, Miles Bridges. He had a chance, actually, probably.
What about in the West?
In the West, let's see. DeAndre Ayton. I wanted to see him in there just because he's such a big piece for the Suns, who are like the best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, that's true. But hold on. I mean, They picked up what's his name, the center, Bismack Biyombo, and he's been doing good all of a sudden. So is it really Ayton, or is it just like any center that plays with Chris Paul is good?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But yeah, Ayton is really talented. I think he's a fun player. They're gonna have to figure out what to do with him this summer. How much money are they gonna give him?
All right. So for the West, the first 4 are pretty self-explanatory. For my 2 guards, I had Steph Curry and John Morant, which they were picked for starters. And then I had LeBron and Nikola Jokic for 2 of my forwards. And then the last spot was really hard because I had Rudy Gobert because the Jazz was super good, and he's arguably the best defensive player in the league.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been Paul George if he had not gotten hurt, because he was doing really good before he got hurt.
Yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of injuries out west this year.
DeMar DeRozan was really good. He was like an easy guard I had, even though he's not really a guard. He's more of a small forward or power forward.
Yeah.
But he's classified as a guard somehow.
Love him. I hate, this is one of my pet peeves, is like people talk about like, oh, they overpaid him. And, you know, my thing as a Bulls fan, especially since we've been languishing out of the playoffs for years, I'm like, I don't care if my team spends a bunch of money to get a good guy that's good. Like, why does that affect me? I just want my team to be better. Like, if they overpay to make my team better, I could care less. It was the same thing that like a couple of years ago with the Sixers. It's like they had Tobias Harris and they could have signed Jimmy Butler, and everyone was like, well, how can they sign Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler? I'm like, I don't know, just overpay both of them. Like, who cares if the team's bill is crazy? Like, and you know, the Warriors have like the highest bill in history. It's like, is anybody complaining? No, they love it.
Yeah, and this other guard spot was hard because I was going back and forth from James Harden and Trae Young. Trae Young is having the better season, but the Hawks they're barely in the play-in right now. If I were to make a pick, I would probably go Trae Young just because the Nets have lost so many in a row.
Interesting.
Zach LaVine, I was also thinking about him just because.
Another Bull. I love that.
These three were probably the easiest ones. Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. They're all MVP race right now. Well, Kevin Durant, not so much just because he's injured. I don't know when he's coming back, but he's obviously a captain. And then Chris Paul is probably the best playmaker in the league still. I think he leads the league in assists per game.
Crazy. He's like the one person in the NBA that is maybe going to convince me to become a vegan. He's turned his life around not eating meat. I'm like, is he onto something? I don't want him to be right, but I'm amazed by him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What do you think about the trades? Let's get Ben Simmons. That's the hot one. Is he going anywhere? Where do you want to see him go?
I'd like to see him go to the Kings just because I don't like him. And step on it.
You're banishing him to Sacramento, huh?
Yeah. There were apparently the 76ers were trying to trade for James Harden, and they would have had to throw Ben Simmons in there. So him on the Nets I'd actually kind of like that.
You'd like Simmons on the Nets?
Yeah, just because. I mean, yeah, they need a good defender, and he'd be perfect for them.
I like that.
I don't. Yeah.
I mean, is he going to be able to deal with the pressure though? That's his big thing. Is like, can he deal with that's such a mental thing? Like that's why he's not playing, or why he says he's not playing for the Sixers. They're in the hot seat. He's got to deal with Kyrie just playing on the road, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess he'd probably have to switch his role just because for the 76ers, he would take the ball up, and that would make Kyrie play off ball, which, I mean, he can do, but I'd assume they'd rather have him bring the ball up.
Yeah, I would think he'd want to be more like a, Blake Griffin type or something like that, because KD brings the ball up a lot too. Thank you for listening to the 19-9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. 5 stars only, like the basketball camp. We also have links to all of 19-9 social media so you never miss a release. Until next time,